Hello, everyone. Yeah, you know me. I'm Ed Densel from the Densel Domain. You'd usually, if you hear my voice, you usually think, oh, you're going to hear a little bit about politics. Not with this particular show, this little special edition. In fact, the only place you're going to be able to listen to this is on YouTube. And the reason I'm doing that is because I know that there are a lot of Glock owners on there. There's tons and tons of Glock videos there. And I just wanted to offer my insights on being a Glock owner. And the reason I'm doing this is I took my Glock, my new Glock. It's a Glock 19 Generation 3, third generation Glock 19, to the range today. And I had a great time. And so this is probably for people, for serious Glock owners who've had them for 20 years. I don't think you're going to get much out of this. But for people who are maybe thinking about getting their first gun or thinking about switching to a different kind of gun, because I think, some relevant information there that may help out, then this is probably for you. I'm 45 years old. I've never owned a gun, never fired a gun until a few weeks ago. For me, the decision to get a gun, as you know, the Densel Domain, I'm a conservative. I'm a huge believer in gun rights. I'm a huge believer in concealed carry. I believe that we have, as humans, the right to defend ourselves. I also think that an armed citizen is the greatest defense against tyranny from big government. I believe all of that. However, I never fired a gun or owned a gun until just a couple weeks ago. I think what got me motivated after talking about guns and knowing gun owners, at least half of my family are huge gun owners, big hunters in Pennsylvania. They've gone out west to Montana, Wyoming, shooting elk and moose and bear and with those bighorn sheep or whatever else. Never got into that anything at all. I was a sports guy. I was a car guy. Never got in. And I was a musician guy, playing the piano. Never got into guns. What finally did it for me was Paris, the Paris shooting. Obviously, we know about a lot of shootings throughout the years. And many of them not even terrorist related. But there was something that, I don't know what it was, just something different that struck me with that. I had maybe it's the straw that broke the camel's back. Malcolm Gladwell would call it maybe a tipping point. But I said, you know what? I don't want to be somewhere at Starbucks and get myself into a position like those people were. Just sitting in a nice cafe, enjoying a beautiful Paris night, and then the next second, all that happens. And of course, a few weeks later, what happened in San Bernardino? By the time San Bernardino came around, I already knew I was getting a gun. I just didn't know what yet. So that's what did it for me. Maybe you aren't to that point yet. Maybe it'll come. Maybe you'll listen to this, and you'll say, yeah, Ed's right. Maybe it'll take a little bit more. I don't know. I just know that I have friends who own guns. Just obviously, I totally respect them because I know it's their right to do so. I think it's a great idea. For me personally, I could never logically, I guess, conceive of it. And then it was within a split second of hearing about Paris that just pushed me over the edge. There you go. And there's maybe some psychological reason there, like I've tried to explain to you. Maybe it's even more than that in my subconscious. So I started looking at what I was going to get. And having hardly any knowledge about guns whatsoever. I know how they work, of course, but what's the best for, and I made the decision back then, if you're going to get one, and you want to protect yourself against what you saw in Paris, then you're going to have to carry it. Well, what's the best gun to carry? What's the best for concealed purposes? What's it take to get that license here in the state of Florida? Can you do that? I didn't know anything. I'll admit it. I admit it. As you know on my show, if I don't know something, I'll tell you. So started wading through all these different videos on YouTube, and one way or the other, and once again, the only thing I know about guns is what some few people have told me about them. Obviously, I see them in movies, stuff like that. And I was thinking about a Beretta or maybe a Walther PPK because that's what James Bond has. That's where I was when this all started. But once I started watching videos and looking at Smith & Wessons and Springfield Armory, I kept coming back to the Glock. And then in particular to the Glock 19. And here's the reasons as a new guy that I made this decision. And here's where we're getting to those people out there who maybe haven't bought a gun yet. First of all, the Glocks have a reputation as being a very sturdy weapon. That you can watch all sorts of videos online being put through torture tests and they just won't fail. Within the realm of reason, let's put it that way. First of all. And that's what you should be most concerned about. If you're going to have a gun, you want to have a gun that works and that you can rely on. Second of all, what I liked about the Glock, in contrast to most of the other guns. Now, I know most gun manufacturers quality product. I'm not here to bash Smith & Wesson, Springfield, any other company out there. That's not why I'm here. Taurus, Ruger, I'm not here to bash them. It just seemed to me that the quality of the Glock kept coming back up from video to video, no matter these comparisons back and forth. Maybe it was just me. Second of all, once again, also for new Glock owners, I particularly like it that the gun doesn't have a lot of buttons and switches on it. Now, I know why some companies put those on there, because they don't want somebody shooting himself. So there's a magazine lock, there's a trigger lock, you got the slide lock, all these, like for example, the Berettas have that, the 1911 variety guns have those, the semi-automatic has those, and I decided at the beginning, there's no way I'm getting a revolver. I still may get one for at home here, but if I'm going to conceal carry, it's got to be a semi-automatic, period. And so I may still get a revolver somewhere down the road, but all I have is this one gun right now. But I liked it that it was very simple. That it's just, you put the magazine in, and you know what your safety is? Your finger and your brain. Now, granted, the Glocks do have that, what I guess other people would call, other owners of different guns, the weird trigger. There's like a little button, little lever thing on the trigger that as you pull it, it disengages those things which keep the gun from going off if you were to just drop it or something. But that's it. You can't lock the slide in place. You can't lock something with the magazine to keep from bullets from going up into the barrel. It's just you. You load it, and you pull the slide back, and the first bullet goes into the chamber. You're ready to go. And most Glock owners carry their guns that way. Whereas maybe owners of other types of guns would never think about doing that. There's going to be a safety of one type or another. The best safety you have is what I learned at my class that I went to get my NRA certificate a couple weeks ago. The best safeties you have are your finger and your head. That's all you really need. And I totally believe that. And I think that although some other gun manufacturers put those safety things on there for new owners, to me it's like counterintuitive. The more buttons and levers and things you put on the gun, I think it's the harder it is to learn the gun, first of all. And the last thing you want to do, and it's harder to get into that muscle memory of what you need to do to fire that gun. Whereas with the Glocks, if you can keep your head on your shoulders and your finger, if you have a disciplined trigger finger, that's all you need. And if you get into that situation where you need to use your gun, you don't have to worry about flipping a lever, pushing this button, pushing that button. All you do is take the gun out and use it and pull the trigger. No different than when we were little kids playing with toy guns. Of course, this Glocks or none of these guns are toys. I think there's something to be said about that. By making the guns more complicated by other manufacturers, I think those manufacturers are driving new gun owners. And we know, if you see the statistics out there, people are buying Barack Obama, best gun salesman in the world. In the history of the world. Not just right now, in the history of the world. Those new gun owners, you see the sales, a lot of new gun owners. I think those other manufacturers are driving to something toward like Glock because the guns are so easy to use. All right? So those were a couple things that kept sticking out to me as a person who was shopping for a new gun, my first gun. Not just new gun, but first gun. I wanted to go with the 9mm simply because the ammunition is cheaper than 10mm, 40 caliber, 45 caliber, 357 caliber. All right. That's why I went with a 9mm. Never entertained the idea of getting a 38 simply because I'd read a few too many stories about maybe the 380 not having enough knockdown power. I'm sure people who own 380s, 388 specials would say otherwise. I just didn't want to take the chance. In addition, during the course of me looking at buying a Glock, it came out that the news that the SEALs are going to be moving from Sig Sauer to Glock 19s, coincidentally, the gun that I was looking at. And that kind of sealed the deal for me. That's all I needed to hear. If it's good enough for SEALs, then it's good enough for Ed Dentzel. I wasn't going to get the Glock 17, the 9mm, because too big of a gun to conceal carry. Fine if you're a policeman or in the military. I don't know, for a common citizen, conceal carry, regular clothes, going to be a little tough. I thought about the Glock 26, which is even the smaller version of my gun, but I was a little worried about the grip. The grip being a little too small, and we're going to get into that a little bit later because my dad was with me today, and he shot my gun, and we're going to talk about grips and things in a second. The Glock 26, you can use the same magazines as a Glock 19, Glock 17, but I was a little worried that I know they have these extensions and all of that, but once you start putting the extension on it, then it's like, well, you might as well just gotten a Glock 19, and with the Glock 19, you're going to have a little... It seems to me that the barrel's a little bit longer, so your accuracy might be a little bit better. In addition, I was reading about the Glock 26. It might just have a little more kick because it's a little lighter gun than the Glock 19. So the Glock 19 is that nice mixture between the Glock 17 that's too big that you can't conceal and the Glock 26 that you can conceal, but it might have a couple things going on with it as using it and holding it that might not be good for a new gun owner. I'm sure a guy who's been, or a woman who's been shooting guns for years, Glock 26 and some of its peculiarities might be fine. For me, I decided on the Glock 19. I didn't go with the Glock 43, which is the really small version of the slimline, they call it, the Glock 43 9mm, because, frankly, and I know a girl in Las Vegas who got a Glock 43 and loves it. All right, and nothing against it. But I was thinking, you know what? It only holds like 6-7 bullets. And it is a small gun. And for women, you can put it in your purse. You can put it here. You can put it there. Obviously, guys, same thing. I just got thinking, you know what? Maybe as a new gun owner, if I get in a situation, I'm probably going to need as many bullets as I can get. That was also going through my head as well. Also, as I've discovered, those smaller guns although they may be very compact and you can hide them anywhere, when you go to shoot them, once again, you're going to maybe have a handling problem. The grip might not be big enough to get a good handle on it. And the smaller guns, they have a notorious problem for kicking a lot more than bigger guns too, because they're firing the same bullet as a bigger gun, but the gun itself is lighter, and that matters. And I found that out today. So that's, and I'm going to go into that in a second. So those were the reasons that eventually I came around to the Glock 19. So my parents are down here to the end of March, and I wanted my dad to come. And to be honest with you, even though I'm 45 years old, my mom and dad bought me this gun for Christmas. They asked me back in November, right around the time I was thinking about getting a gun, they always ask me, what do you want, Fred, for Christmas? You know, they treat me like I'm 15. And I just told them, I'm thinking about getting a gun. My mom was like, really? Yeah, I think so, yeah. Okay. Well, so when they came down, my dad and I finally found some time, and we went over to Bill Jackson's, which is over on 19 here in Pinellas County, to look at them. So I went in there, just told the guy, hey, I'm a new gun guy. Never owned one, never fired one, looking at the Glock 19. So he pulled one out, looked at it. Then he showed me, well, maybe you should compare that with some of these others. So he showed me, I think it was the Sig Sauer. He showed me a Springfield Armory gun like the Glock 19, and he also showed me the Smith & Wesson version. They just didn't seem right. Maybe it was subconscious because I had my heart set on a Glock 19. But those three guns just didn't feel right in my hand. On top of maybe the subconscious, there was something about those. I got to tell you, it's like their handles were the grips were too skinny to me. Now, I'm 5'9", 175 pounds. My hands, I guess, are bigger than your average 5'9" guy. It's also one of the reasons I played the piano so well. I have like piano player fingers that the palms are big, and I have long, skinny fingers. All right, have you ever seen my hands? And like on a piano, I can do way over an octave on a piano. So if I'm on C, middle C, I can hit like F or E or F above the high C. That's how wide my fingers are. So those guns just didn't, the handle, there was something up with the Glock. And like I said, I got the Gen 3, not the Gen 4. Gen 4 was more money. And I was perfectly fine with that. I know the Gen 4 is supposed to be an improvement. Fine by me. The Gen 3 with its stock grip felt perfect to me. Even though I've read out there that the grip angle on the Glock is different with those other guns. For a new person, being that I've never held a gun before, it didn't seem odd to me. So if you are a new person, don't be afraid of that. You don't know what's weird because you've never handled a gun before. Somebody puts a gun in your hand for the first time, you're just going to figure out how to point at the target. Whereas somebody who's been using guns for a long time, if they come across a new gun with a new kind of grip, they're going to get it and they're like, oh, this is weird. Whereas you may think that same gun makes all the sense in the world. So these are some of the reasons I came to the conclusion that the Glock 19 was the best gun for me. And so we went and bought it and took the class, and that was when I first got to fire I guess you'd call it a real gun for the first time. For our target practice at the end of the class that I took, which will lead me to getting my concealed permanent. I should say that because they're so backed up here in Florida, I have an appointment on March 8th to get fingerprinted and to get my photo taken and all of that. And then I'm probably going to have to wait at least 3 months to actually get my carry license. So I'm not even going to be able to carry this gun until probably like June or July or something like that. Okay? So it's not like I'm carrying it now, or even we'll be able to carry it in March. It's going to take some time, which I understand. But so at the end of that class, I got to fire a 22. Once again, it's a real gun. I mean, certainly we wouldn't want to be on the wrong end of a 22, but it's certainly not what you'd call a gun for defensive purposes. And I don't know how many people really carry 22s, concealed carry 22s. But that's the gun that everybody in the class used to qualify in the range at Bill Jackson's a couple weeks ago. And I actually shot pretty well, having never fired a gun before. But I had my gun. It's just they didn't want to get into the everything of everybody bringing their own gun to the class and having different ammunition and all that. They just didn't want to get it. So they just said everybody's going to shoot some 22s. And I got to shoot both a semi-automatic and a revolver. All right. So between them, I'm going to say it was like 25 shots or something. Those semi-autos and those revolvers, because those bullets are so small, you get a lot of shots. So did that and just couldn't find the time. I'm a busy guy between doing my writing and my show and everything. Haven't had any time to get to the range for the first time with my new gun. But I also wanted to wait. That with the Glock 19, you get two 15-round magazines. I think they used to offer 3. Probably some cost-cutting going on at Glock. You only got 2. So I also ordered 2 more magazines from a Glock 17, and those each hold 17 rounds each. I ordered those, and I'm telling you right now as a new gun owner, you must get a loader, a real loader. Like, what did Lula or Mag Lula, whatever it's called. You'll find it online. It's made in Israel. There's some videos on YouTube. You can see how it works. You must get it. I've tried loading my magazines with just my thumbs. Crazy hard, especially because the magazines are new. But once you get this loader, it's going to be so easy, you're going to forget that it can be hard if you just do it manually with your thumbs. Okay? That is something you need to get. After you get your gun, that should be the next purchase. You want to get some additional magazines. Not so much you're going to need them for self-defense at your home, or you're going to be carrying them all out there in the world, because it should be enough, hopefully, if you get into a situation that your Glock 19 with a 15-round clip should be enough. Unless you just run into, 15 terrorists with AK-47s, then no amount of ammunition is going to be enough. You know what I mean? But I would say get the extra magazines for when you go to the range. So you can load up that. Now, you should know, I also ordered a 33-round magazine that actually comes with a Glock 18, which is a Glock that's not available for consumer use. It's an automatic. You just pull the trigger, and it just keeps firing. It's a pistol that does that. But they make a 33-round magazine for that that will fit in your gun. It'll also fit in Glock 17. It'll fit in Glock 26. Okay? Ordered one of those, but those are hard to find. And so it was on back order, so I just cut the order out. But I intend on getting one, or at least a couple of them. So what you can do, though, like I said, it's not so much for defensive purposes or even home purposes, but when you go to the range, you can all preload that beforehand. So between 2 15-round magazines that you get with the gun, with 2 17-round magazines that you can either order or get them at the store where you bought the gun, whatever you want to do, and a 33-rounder magazine, that's 100 rounds. That's a good shooting session, I think, if you're going to go shoot once a month. So you can load that all up at home, go to the range, just empty your clips, and you know when you're done, you don't even have to guess how many bullets you fired. You just know it's about 100. And for, I think, your common person just wanting to stay crisp just in case, 100 rounds once a month is plenty. Once again, just what videos I've been watching, what I've been reading. Okay? And that's eventually my plan. I don't have that 3-round magazine, but I'm going to get one, if not a couple. Obviously, you can't conceal with one of those. In fact, you can't even conceal with a 17-round mag because the 17-round mag sticks out the bottom of the grip by like 3/4 of an inch. So when you're going to conceal carry, if that's what you're going to do with a Glock 19, you just want to have the regular 15-round clip that comes with it. It's, it goes in, it's smooth along the bottom of the handle. That keeps the gun as small as it can get. And then you can conceal it what you're ever going to do inside the waistband or whatever. So this was all thinking, once again, just what I've learned, just going through the process of preparing myself to fire the gun for the first time. And while I've been at home, I was waiting for those magazines to come in so I could do that to go to the range. Because I didn't want to go to the range with 2 clips, knowing that 34 bullets is not, or 30 rounds isn't going to be enough for a first time, and then have to reload them even with a loader. So I waited for those other magazines to get here, and then I went to the range. That's what I would recommend to you. There's no rush necessarily. So having gone there today, you should know my dad has a Ruger LC9 9mm that he's had for a few years. And he's never been that thrilled with it. Now that I shot his gun today too. And now I know why. It's a smaller gun. It's more along the lines of a Glock 43. Slimline, smaller gun, 9mm, easy to conceal. The main difference between it and the Glock 43 is that the LC9 is a double action semi-automatic. The Glock 43 is just like all the Glocks are, just single action. And it makes I'm telling you, for you new people, it makes a huge difference. And this goes back to what I was saying about the Glock 26 or the Glock 43. They may be smaller guns, and conceptually you may think, oh, they're easy to handle. They're not. And I may even say that about those other 2 guns. The smallness and not being able to get both of your hands on the grip matters. I'll give you a perfect example from today. My dad, before he had the Ruger, he had a Taurus gun that he didn't even remember what kind. He knows it was 9mm, but that's all he remembers. So I don't even know what size it was. And before that, he had a revolver that I can remember that growing up, him having that. But he was in the Army. He used to shoot an M1. He was in the Army before the M16 or the AR-15, whatever they call them, got popular. He trained on the M1 in the mid to late 50s after the Korean War. So he's been around guns, but once again, he's like me, never got into hunting or anything like that. That was the other side of my family. That's my mother's side that got into hunting. And so he took his gun to the range today. I took my gun to the range today. And I shot my gun the first clip, and his gun only holds like 7 bullets. It's one of these slimline, tiny guns. And I could already tell that his gun was harder to shoot than mine. My gun has some kick, but I don't know anything about recoil because I've never shot a 9mm before. I'm going to take for granted that it's less than a 40, 40 caliber, less than a 38. I have no idea. But it's certainly manageable. But I got to tell you, the first time you pull that trigger, those first couple times of you never firing a real gun in your life, there's some adrenaline flowing. But here's the real story. My dad had shot his gun before. Hasn't liked it too much. Had never fired a Glock before, ever. I gave him my gun. He hit the bullseye, could not hit the bullseye with his Ruger LC9. Hit the bullseye this was at 20 feet, 4 out of his first 6 shots. And that was way better than I did than probably to the last clip that I got to when I finally figured out what I was doing. That's how much easier the Glock 19 compact gun was to shoot than his very small Ruger LC9. And at that point, he decided, I'm switching. Absolutely. In fact, he sold the gun while he found a guy who's into smaller Rugers and smaller guns, just coincidentally, is going to be selling his gun to this guy. and my dad is going to go get a gun like mine. All it took was that. He loved my gun from the first time he pulled the trigger. He had never even, I don't even know if he'd ever even heard of Glocks before I told him, hey, Dad, if you're going to buy me a gun, I'm looking at the Glock 19. He didn't even know what that was. Didn't even know what that was. So he continued to fire his gun a couple times. I fired his gun just to see the difference. I'm telling you, people, huge difference. And I can only take for granted that would be the big difference. See, the weird thing about these double action guns is the trigger action is so long. And the Ruger is not like some of the compact guns like the other Glock type guns where when the hammer comes back, then the hammer's already back, so it becomes single action. This Ruger is double action the whole way. It's a long trigger pull, and it's hard to keep it accurate the whole time. And in addition, that little gun had more kick, more recoil than mine did. Once again, because it's lighter. At least that's my understanding. Just this little tiny gun. You can't hang on to it. You can't get all of your fingers on the grip. Even putting that other hand, your other hand, whatever, your right hand or left-handed, on there does not help. Once again, if you are a person who's owned guns for a lot of years and maybe has experience with these smaller guns, then I'm sure it's easier for you. But you new gun owners, I would stay away from the smaller guns. Just my experience today, first time with my gun compared to a smaller gun, my Glock 19 was so much easier to shoot. To the point, by the time we had the third target out there, which would have been about the last 30 bullets that I shot, I could hit the bullseye in the middle or right around there pretty consistently. And in fact, we even took the target out to 30 feet for the last couple shots, and I pointed off to the left. Had I pointed right at the bullseye, I would have hit it. Instead, I aimed a little to the left so I'd know where the bullets from 30 feet went, and all they did was right off to the left. They were right in line with the target just to the left. I would have hit it had I been aiming at it. So I'd gotten a lot better. There's no way, had I been using that Ruger, if I'd shot 100 bullets today with that Ruger LC9, there is no way I would have smelled the bullseye at 30 feet. Or maybe not. I didn't hit it at 20 feet with about the 15 shots that I aimed at it, that I fired at it. I didn't come close to the bullseye with that LC9. With my gun, though, I eventually started hitting the bullseye pretty consistently. For you new people who are thinking about getting a gun, you need to keep that in mind. We were using 115 grain full metal jacket, practice ammo. My dad does have hollow points, but we didn't use them today. Of course, you should use them for defense. Don't use them at the range. Use the full metal jackets at the range. Keep the hollow points because they're more expensive to buy also. Keep them, and they're better for stopping power. Keep them for when you carry. Keep those at home for home defense. Don't use them at the range. Once again, just some things that I'm learning, both from the instructors of that class I had a couple weeks ago, and from just my reading, going around, reading articles, and watching videos here on YouTube. So it was a fun day. It was a fun day. There is no doubt that I made the best gun purchase possible. After firing it today, there is no doubt in my mind that I could have gotten a better gun for me. I think, like I said, I'm 5'9", 175 pounds. I know that some may say, well, that Glock 19, are you going to be able to conceal carry that thing? I think I am. In fact, I've messed around with it, sticking it in my waistband and my back just with T-shirts on. No problem. Even though I don't have a holster yet. Just messing around with it shouldn't be any problem. Now, if you're a little woman, or something, it may be a problem. You may be limited to the different kinds of clothes that you can wear if you want to wear your gun as well. Okay, frankly. But I'm not worried about concealed carrying that at all. And you can see many videos out there of a lot of at least men on YouTube showing how they carry their Glock 19 and are able to cover it up and all of that. So I'm not even worried about that when that's going to roll around for me in probably 4 months or something like that. Don't think that you have to get this tiny little gun that only holds six bullets, 6 cartridges, I should say. 6 cartridges, and that's the only thing that you can use for concealed carry because it's something that needs to be really small. Yeah, you're going to be able to conceal it, but are you going to be able to hit something with it? Is it going to be comfortable in your hand? Right? All these different things you have to factor in other than just whether you can hide it or not. It may be that you need to step up to a little bigger gun to be able to do with it what you want when you need to. Because we have to all remember something. None of us is going to know how we're going to react in that moment until it happens. But when it does happen, you want to make sure that you have the best gun that you can have given the circumstances. And if you're giving up accuracy for concealment, I think that's a mistake. I think so. I think that there is a nice medium in there where you can get a little bigger gun that's going to be easier to handle, that's going to be more accurate, that might not have as much recoil. It's going to be in a good caliber, like 9mm. Nice size bullet of 9mm. Okay? Once again, though, if you're thinking you need a really, like the Glock 17, then then the concealment of that is going to be tougher. I'm not saying people don't do it, but I think for the average person, that's going to be tough. I think the biggest you can go amongst guns is that mid-size Glock 19 and some of those other guns that I had my hands on that day that I went to get mine. But in the end, I decided on the Glock 19 because, like I said, I'd done a lot of studying, but once I finally had the gun in my hand, it fulfilled my expectations of what it was going to be like. And then once I went to the range today, it more than exceeded my expectations. More than, just absolutely more than exceeded it. Okay? The ease of using it. I'll admit, we did have one jam, but it happened when my dad was using it, and frankly, I think it was because he was limp-wristing it a little bit, so we had one jam. It never jammed for me, although I will say that I have to work on my grip some. My shooting got better the more I concentrated on gripping the gun. I think I was a little too relaxed. I got to the point where I was relaxing everything. Because at the beginning, I had a lot of adrenaline going on. So I was all tense, and then I was like, okay, I'd breathe. And then when I started to relax, I think I let my hands relax too. You can't do that. You have to have a firm grip on the gun. Palms to palms, thumbs to thumbs, fingers to fingers. Had to show that to my dad today once again because he's used to firing this little gun, and you can't get the right grip on it, so you have to kind of figure out something. So when he had my Glock 19 in his hand, he was like, oh man, yeah, this is a real gun, but he didn't know how to hold it. He's right-handed like I am, at least when shooting guns, and he's like holding his wrist and doing this and doing that. I said, no, Dad, here's what you want to do. Okay? He couldn't do it, though, with his gun. Just not enough room on that Ruger's grip. On the 19, you have plenty of room to do that. And that makes for a better experience. It makes for a better accuracy and less recoil. Better to get back on the target as soon as you can. So it was a fantastic day. As I'm standing here, I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anything. I do think I am. There weren't a lot of people there at the range. We had our glasses on. We had our earmuffs on. Just me and my dad out there doing some shooting. We had a great time. I tell you what, my dad can shoot. He's 79 years old. Really good shape physically for his age, no doubt about it. But he outshot me today. Me using my gun, him using my gun. He shot my gun better than I did. I'll admit it. For 79 years old, he hit the bullseye quite a few times. And I don't even know how much recent gun experience he has. And it could be that he's been using that Ruger LC9 for so long, and it's so hard to control that once he got his hands on my gun, it's like nothing. It's like, oh man, this is easy. But that also goes, I think, to the testimony that the Glocks make a great gun. Even though they've only been making guns for, 30 years or something like that? There's a reason Glocks have become so popular so quickly. And now, maybe I didn't understand that when I first started looking into them, because I knew about Glock. I had heard it. I knew the company. But didn't realize how they were different from the other companies and how it got started and the differences, the mechanical differences between the Glock and other guns, mostly being how they don't have your traditional safeties. They have a very clean exterior to the gun compared to most other pistols out there. But now I know. I get it. I totally get it. And this is, once again, from a new gun owner, never having fired a gun before. I used to fire like BB guns when I was 12, 33 years ago. So just a great experience. I'm looking forward to getting my concealed carry license, looking forward to going to the range again. My dad found a buyer for his Ruger some guy wanted it. Even though my dad's there standing, well, this Glock's way better than this Ruger. This guy still wanted to buy my dad's Ruger. Who knew? I guess there's an ass for every seat. So my dad's going to take that money and he's going to get himself a Glock like 19 like mine because he absolutely loved my gun. I should say one more other thing. I started looking into this, like I said, sometime in November. And I mentioned to my brother Michael, who's in his 60s, about how I was looking at a gun. And I must have pitched him, and I told him what I was looking at in videos, and I might have even sent him some links of what I was looking at. He has gone out, and he got himself, he got his Glock 19 right when I got my Glock 19. And the only reason he got that gun is because of what I told him. And he shot it a few times so far. He also loved his. Now the cool thing about his is green. The what is it? The handle part is green. The slide is black. Very interesting. But he got a Glock 19 and loves it. And my dad is going to get one. I of course have mine. I think what it is you let somebody fire one and they're just sold. It's just that easy to understand. All right? I know that people make fun of the block. It's not that attractive a gun to some people. I think it's a sexy gun. I look at mine and I say, you know what? If Darth Vader had a gun, this would be it. Now, maybe Darth might have a 45 ACP or something like that. Maybe Darth's a little too big for 9mm. I don't know. But I just wanted to give you my experience, my whole experience from deciding to get one to now today, where I finally got to shoot mine for the first time. And truthfully, I can't wait to go back to the range again. I can't wait to carry it on me when I go out. And I hope I never have to use it. Thank you for listening tonight. Special edition of the Denzel Domain on YouTube.